Coming up today, South Korea and Indonesia look set to take their bilateral ties to the next level during summit talks in Seoul. The United States will examine whether to re-enlist North Korea as a state sponsor of terrorism. A group of congressmen believes Pyongyang merits redesignation. Plus, Manchester United Stadium is evacuated after a suspect package is found before the final game of the season. An army bomb disposal unit carries out a controlled explosion. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Monday, the 16th of May. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. We are going to start at the nation's top office. President Park Geun-hye will sit down with her Indonesian counterpart Joko Widodo for summit talks at Cheongwadae later this afternoon. After a decade of strategic partnership, the two sides are looking to upgrade their relations to a comprehensive partnership. Officials say the leaders will discuss ways to boost cooperation in economy, trade and energy, as well as in new growth engines like maritime and new industry sectors. The talks will be followed by an MOU signing ceremony, a joint press briefing and then dinner. The Indonesian leader is in Seoul on a three-day state visit, reciprocating President Park's state visit to Indonesia back in 2013. Lawmakers in the United States have introduced a bill to consider whether North Korea should be redesignated as a state sponsor of terrorism. The calls include an investigation into the 2014 cyber attack on Sony Pictures, as well as hackings into South Korean agencies. Kwon-swa with the details.
U.S. lawmakers are seeking to examine whether North Korea should be redesignated as a state sponsor of terrorism. The bill, named H.R. 5208, was proposed by U.S. Congressman Ted Poe and submitted by co-sponsor Congressman Brad Sherman last week, and is meant to allow the U.S. administration to hold investigations on North Korea's terror threats and report the details to Congress. 21 cases since 1970 are subject to re-examination. They include North Korea's bombing of a Korean air passenger jet in 1987, which initially put Pyongyang on the list of terrorism sponsors, the cyber attack on Sony Pictures in 2014, as well as more recent alleged hackings into South Korean government institutions. The South Korean government avoided taking a stance on the designation itself, but says it hopes North Korea refrains from further terror acts.
We hope North Korea turns away from terrorism and other attacks for the sake of improving inter-Korean relations and peace in the region.
The United States took North Korea off the list in 2008 as Pyongyang agreed to disclose information about its nuclear weapons stockpile. But voices on a redesignation have been growing as the regime is not abiding by international rules and sanctions when it comes to its nuclear and missile provocations, including its fourth nuclear test earlier this year. Kwon-swa, Arirang News.
South Korea's defense ministry has confirmed that it will join the United States and Japan for a joint missile alarm drill in Hawaii this summer. The drill will take place during the Rim of the Pacific exercises, or RIMPAC, which is the world's largest international naval warfare exercise with 20 countries taking part. The drill will focus on detecting and tracking possible ballistic missiles from North Korea, but will not involve actually intercepting the projectiles. South Korean military officials say the drill will be executed in accordance with the Information Access Treaty signed back in December 2014, where the three countries agreed to exchange intel to better cope with North Korean threats. RIMPAC is scheduled to start sometime between June and August. Donald Trump, presumptive Republican candidate in the race for the White House, seems to have tempered his views on South Korea's contribution to the costs of having the U.S. military stationed here. Trump has previously said South Korea pays peanuts for the U.S. troop presence and even threatens to pull out unless Seoul covers all the costs. But now In a softer tone, the Trump camp says he would never abandon South Korea if he became president. In an interview with Seoul-based Yonhap news agency, Trump's foreign policy advisor, Walid Fariz, said Trump's comments were just an expression of principles, stating that withdrawing troops would only be considered as the last resort. Fariz also said Trump wants to renegotiate Washington's free trade deals, including the one with South Korea, but stressed that renegotiation doesn't mean cancelling everything. Now, there's a new revelation in the Oxy Reckitt Benckiser toxic humidifier sterilizer case. New data from the Fair Trade Commission seems to indicate Oxy knew of the potential dangers of its products before putting them on the shelves. Imin Young has the details.
A new development in the Oxy case further challenges the company's claim that it was completely unaware of the potential dangers of its toxic humidifier sterilizers before putting them on the market. According to data secured by the Fair Trade Commission in 2012, Oxy started getting safety data sheets on the toxic chemical PHMG starting in 2000, when it first started using the substance, showing that people should not inhale it. Officials say that this indicates Oxy knowingly used the deadly chemical in their sterilizers. PHMG is a toxic industrial chemical known to cause fatal respiratory conditions that was used as a component for its humidifier sterilizer products. Datasheets contain information on chemicals, mostly for the safe use and potential hazards associated with them, and the data is supposed to be made available when the chemical in question is in use. In the course of its investigation, which started May 11th, the prosecution discovered that Oxy destroyed all the data sheets related to PHMG from 2001 to 2011, just before prosecutors began storming Oxy Korea's offices starting at the end of April. Apart from Oxy's alleged misdeeds, however, some say the prosecution is also responsible for its inaction, as it has waited 4 years to investigate the FTC's allegations from 2012 that manufacturers, including Oxy, were mislabeling their products as safe to use. In response, the prosecutor's office says it couldn't have begun its investigation any earlier, as an official statement outlining the hazards of the sterilizers was only released in August 2015. Meanwhile, over 430 people claiming to have been harmed by the humidifier sterilizers announced their plan on Monday to file a class action suit for damages against 19 companies related to the scandal and the government. Lee Min-young, Arirang News.
Now, with the murky conditions clouding Korean shipyards' futures and a lack of new orders, the nation's 3 biggest shipbuilders are expected to cut production, and soon. Kim Min-ji has more.
Korea's ailing shipbuilding industry can't seem to catch a break, with its woes likely to continue into the foreseeable future. According to a report by a research institute of the Export and Import Bank of Korea, the volume of new orders worldwide amounted to 2.3 million compensated gross tons, which is the amount of work that is necessary to build a given ship as of the first quarter. That's down over 70% from the same period last year. For Korea, the figure stood at 170,000 CGT, down 94% from the year before. The figure for the whole year is expected to come to 1.6 million CGT, down 85% from last year. In a reflection of the dire situation, the nation's 3 biggest shipbuilders are set to cut production capacity as part of a larger restructuring effort. According to industry sources, Hyundai Heavy Industries has decided to tentatively close its dockyards, while both Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering and Samsung Heavy Industries are expected to follow suit. Although the dockyards are all fully operational at the moment, the closures are expected to take place once existing orders are complete, starting with the yards deemed the most inefficient. In fact, the restructuring effort for the Big 3 is expected to kick off in full this week. Hyundai Heavy Industries submitted its restructuring plan to its creditors last week. It's accepting voluntary resignations from staff and pushing to sell the assets of smaller subsidiaries. Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering is expected to draw up a rescue plan that includes a cut in workers, wages, and facilities, and could submit it to creditors by the end of May. Samsung Heavy Industries is also slated to hand in a similar rescue plan later this month. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
The price of local beef is on the rise. According to Statistics Korea, beef prices spiked more than 18% in April from a year ago, and that marks the biggest on-year jump in 6 years. The average price of hanwoo, as it's called in Korea, has been going up since the end of last year. In October of last year, prices rose more than 12%, but this year's increases have become even more pronounced, rising between 14 to 18%. The rise in prices comes on the back of a drop in livestock numbers. Local farms have reduced their stocks since prices fell sharply 3 years ago. And due to the Korea-U.S. free trade agreement, the government supported the shutdown of farms to maintain local prices. Over the same period, the price of imported beef edged up just over 2%. Online sales of virtual reality devices have jumped this year after global attention was drawn to the industry at this year's Mobile World Congress. According to local online market 11th Street, sales of VR devices from the beginning of the year up until May 12th jumped tenfold compared to the same period last year. According to the retailer, demand rose sharply over the past few months, especially after Samsung released its Gear VR headset last November. Online retailers Gmarket and Auction also saw a steep rise in sales. According to Gmarket, the market is expected to take off as contents expand and prices drop. The market capitalization of Korea's benchmark KOSPI has gained 0.7% since the beginning of the year, while the nation's 10 largest groups shed over 2%. According to Korea Exchange, on this Monday, the combined market cap of the top 10 companies made up 53.17% of the market, down 1.53 percentage points from the end of last year. Hanjin Shipping's market cap fell by the largest margin amid debt restructuring, down more than 67% compared to the end of 2014. It was followed by Samsung Engineering and Samsung Heavy Industries. More than 70,000 fans were evacuated by police at Manchester United's Old Trafford Stadium on Sunday after a suspicious package was found. The match was abandoned, with fans praising the police for their rapid response. Kim Myo-kyun has the details.
A controlled explosion was carried out on a suspicious package at Manchester United's home ground, Old Trafford, on Sunday. Police initially described the object as looking incredibly like an explosive device. A later assessment concluded that the device wasn't viable. The discovery forced the abandonment of the club's final game of the English Premier League season against Bournemouth. Later, Greater Manchester Police expressed gratitude to the Manchester United and Bournemouth supporters for their cooperation. Assistant Chief Constable John O'Hare said the item was a training device accidentally left by a private company following an exercise involving search dogs. Though the item did not turn out to be an explosive device, he said the decision to evacuate the stadium was the right thing to do. Fans who came from all over the world to match the game expressed disappointment and relief at the same time.
Yeah, hopefully we'll make it back one day, but, you know, it's very expensive to fly and to travel here, so...
Well, we didn't even get a chance to get in. There was people outside, obviously, getting into the match. And unfortunately, we was told that there was some kind of bomb scare. So it was all done very professionally by the police and the stewards.
The Premier League says the match has been rescheduled to Tuesday evening. Tickets for Sunday's game remain valid, and refunds will be offered to any supporters unable to attend. Kim Myo-kyun, Arirang News.
Now, Korea's air quality has been poor this year, it's fair to say, due to high levels of fine dust in the air. And now a new index shows just exactly where Korea falls in the world rankings. The Environmental Performance Index ranks South Korea a very lowly 173rd out of 180 countries for poor air quality. The index, by researchers from Yale and Columbia University, surveys 9 environmental issues deemed high priority. China, as you might expect, ranked 179th, 6 notches below Korea, and the report noted that more than 50% of the population in China and Korea are exposed to unsafe levels of fine dust. The Korean government has been making an effort to tackle the issue by implementing stronger regulations on emitters of such toxic matter and is working with China to prevent toxic dust from floating over to Korea. Korea's Ministry of Public Safety and Security is holding its 2016 Safe Korea Anti-Disaster Exercise from this Monday through Friday. The annual drill is designed to help people better cope with unexpected situations and minimize injury and damage. Around 290 organizations will take part in more than 750 drills. On Monday, disaster drills for typhoons and floods are being held. Seoul City will also hold its first civil defense drill of the year at 2 p.m. today. When the siren goes off, pedestrians should find shelter for 15 minutes. Drivers as well should pull over for the duration of the drill. Also, due to a fire evacuation drill scheduled for 2:20 p.m. at Jamsil Station, trains on Seoul's subway line 2, the Green Line, will be stopped for around 10 minutes. Well, those are the stories we've been following on this Monday afternoon here in Seoul. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out our website, arirang.com/news. Have a great day. Goodbye.